So I had something different for you guys tonight. We are going to be charging up the Ford Lightning using the Tesla Universal Wall Connector. And usually I use the IYILO that's over here in the corner using a NEMA 1450. But tonight we have something a little bit different and special. First of all, what's different about the Universal Wall Connector is that I usually use that for my wife's Model Y. But cool thing here is that you can take this charger, and by taking the handle here and pushing the little adapter, you can hold this in. And then what's going to happen here is this connector, oops, that's the normal connector. There we go. Pushing that button in is going to give us the J1772. So now I take this, and it's got plenty of cable length here on this Tesla unit to reach all the way over to where my Ford Lightning is parked. So let's go over there and take this all the way over to where that is and plug that in, and we're going to talk about what we've got set up here. So as I plug this into the Lightning, I'm going to tell you in a second why we're doing this in the middle of the night. I'm going to tell you about the electrical rates here in California. You're going to notice that it just turned from blue to green. I don't think the camera actually caught that. I was trying to do it right here at the last minute at midnight. It just switched over from our electrical rates that are peak rates over 54 cents a kilowatt hour all the way down to 23 cents. And that's one of the things here in California. We have all these different rate tiers and time of use rates. So in the morning, I've got really low rates starting at midnight all the way through the morning hours. When the sun comes up, I'm running on solar power, and it powers the house all day long and charges up my Tesla power walls. And those get fully charged up so that once the sun goes down, then my house is running on battery power. And in fact, what I really do here, if you go and watch my other video about getting the second power wall, is at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when my peak rates are at the highest. I'm actually switching over already while the sun is up still, running on the battery packs then, sending all of my solar from the roof back to the grid for maximum energy savings, getting all of that solar credit at the maximum value, and then running the house off of the 23-cent power off the battery packs, and then keeping them that way all the way to midnight. The house has been running off these batteries since 3 p.m. Now that it's midnight, the charger is charging up the truck at 23 cents. Then, when the sun comes up, all of the battery packs will recharge again. So right now, the reason I'm using the Tesla Universal Wall Connector is that it is a hardwired setup at 48 amps. And I actually took the Lightning and got it all the way down to 14% today. And I'm going to charge it up to about 85%. So I'm going to need every bit of amperage I can get to try and get that power as high as I can. So let's take a look at the charging in the truck real quick. So here you can see that we're already at 15%, 47 amps. I'm not quite getting the 48 I was looking for. That means my 240 volts going into the house is not as high as I had hoped. I am at 11 kilowatts though, so that's good to see. And you can see that it will be done charging to 85% at basically 8:30 in the morning. So that's exactly what I was looking for. If this was charging at only 40 amps, there's no way that I would get charged up to 85% by the morning when I go to leave for work. So if you're new to EVs, let's talk about two of your typical options that you're going to see out there in the home charging environment. They're going to be what's called J1772 and the Tesla charging, or NACS. You're also going to see an option called NEMA 1450 and Hardwired. We're going to show you both examples. There's also something called level 1, which is going to be your standard 110 volt outlet. For today's purposes, we're not going to show you that. That is an option if you've got a small battery and you're only driving, say, 20 or 30 miles a day. You can definitely take, say, a Model 3, a Nissan Leaf, a GM vehicle like a Bolt or an Equinox, and if that's all the further you're driving and you've got a pretty efficient vehicle, you can certainly drive one of those on your commute, and as soon as you get home, just plug it into a 110 outlet and charge up as soon as you get home overnight. You can probably get most of those miles back on a 110. It's just not very fast when you're doing it that way. So if you have the capability, you want to plug in a level 2 charger, which is going to run off of 240 volts. And that can be done, like we just talked about, either by a NEMA 1450 plug or hard wiring it. Now, there are advantages and disadvantages to each. The NEMA 1450 makes it easy to unplug and plug it back in if you've got a mobile charger, but doing that over time is going to wear down the plug, and some of those mobile chargers are not very reliable. So if you got one of those with your car, I don't think it's a very good permanent solution. Check out my install video on the IYILO charger, and I go through some of the risks with that. In fact, my actual original NEMA 1450, which is a very high quality one made by Hubble, actually had a fault with it. I've got a couple videos about that. Check them out, and you'll see some of the risks with these. One of the other things I'll say is don't buy a cheap one made for ovens. Those cheap $20 that you'll see Leviton ones that you'll see at Home Depot. Never let those get installed. Those are very dangerous. Over time, they can absolutely melt, cause fires. Be very aware to check that they are installed and torqued properly. There are a number of examples where these have set fire to homes, vehicles. They've melted outlets. Don't be the person that spent a lot of money on your vehicle and home and then cheaped out on your NEMA 1450. That is where a hardwire example is usually the better way to go. Spend the money on a proper electrical install and use a licensed electrician, and it's usually the better way to go. But a lot of people do the NEMA 1450 route, and there are things you can do to be safe that way. I have tested to make sure that mine is properly installed, and one of the things I love about the IYILO, and check out my video on that as well, is that it comes with safety sensors built in, not just at the handle for temperature into the truck, but importantly, and something that's very unique about it, is it has sensors right here at the plug. And if it starts to overheat or detect a problem, it will actually derate it and shut it off if necessary. And that is something that I really appreciate. And if there's a problem with the wiring, it will also give me an alert and shut it down, which is in fact how I discovered that I had a problem with my plug and why I ended up replacing my outlet and my breaker. So you can see that whole install video that's in my history if you want to check that out. It's a pretty cool story of how that occurred. So that is what I use for my Lightning. It is, again, only 40 amps. With those breakers, you only want to use it at 80% of the rated capacity of the breaker. So NEMA 1450 is a 50 amp breaker and a 40 amp setting. And so that's what I have right here. This is a J1772 plug. It's a great example, and it's an affordable unit, very compact, and it's under $400. So this, if you wanted to use this to charge a Tesla, I would simply then use this adapter that plugs right into here. So let me show you how that's going to work. You're just going to take the adapter right here, and we're going to plug this in to the J1772. It clicks right here, and then this can be used on the Tesla or things like, I think Rivian now has this Tesla plug. There's the Ioniq that has it. The new Leaf and the Bolt, I believe, have these as well. So there's a number of examples of vehicles that are going NACS. This will work just fine. So that is an option, very affordable, very reliable if you're using a NEMA 1450. It's an option it's an awesome option and certainly a safe way to go. So then this adapter just pops right off of there, and back you go to J1772. And this can also load share if it was hardwired between multiple units. So at some point I may test out having one here and having one over here and load sharing between the two. So let's say that you have a Tesla wall connector. You can do the same thing. You can have a Tesla wall connector, but they are more expensive. They're typically about $500, and they make an adapter for those as well. And this would just be the opposite of what we just saw, where you can plug in this adapter and end up with a J1772 for plugging in your Lightning or some of your other vehicles, VWs and other things that have the original style J1772. Now, the cool thing about the universal wall connector that we just saw is that this adapter is what is literally built in right here to the side, and it looks just like this. And so this, with this little button, is exactly what's here, already built in, but this is a $600 unit. So it is more expensive than the IYILO, but it's worth every penny, guys, because you're kind of getting two chargers in one. This can also load share, by the way. So if I had one here and I had one over there, it could power split between them. I could also have one of these outside my garage if I wanted. They are both waterproof, whether it's the IYILO or this one as well. So two great options depending on your use case. So I just wanted to show you these two recommendations that I have. They are both highly rated by Tom Malogny. He's got great videos on these. They are both very long cables that can reach all the way from here all the way to my truck. So I've had no problems with either of them. And so I recommend them. I know they rate well on Tom's charger rater. He's frozen these cables. He's used these cables and run over these handles. So you know that they are quality products. So I wanted to make sure that we went over these options. I know people have a lot of questions. What charger would you recommend? I got to say, these are two of the best that I know he has tested and two of the best that I have used. So that's why I see them in my garage, and I know you'll see them in his as well. Now, just real quick, while we're on the topic of adapters, I want to make clear that there is a big difference between the adapters I just showed you, which are for 48 amp or less home charging use, and the big boy DC fast charger adapters you see behind me. And I've gone through and tested a number of these, and there are definitely some that are great to use and some others that are perhaps, let's call them, questionable. You can check out a bunch of those. I've got a whole playlist of testing adapters, and I've got more to come. Here you can see a really cool one from Lectron. This is one that is UL tested for 2252, and this is an adapter that will go from CCS to the NACS standard. So look forward to this video to come. They have done a great job of using that testing standard. I've already done one for their adapter. This one, you can see the video that we tested for the Silverado, and this is made by Lectron. It is, again, UL2252 tested. It's very similar to the one that Ford provides. And so this one, you can see done by Lectron. And then, so highly recommend this one. Another really good one is the one done by A to Z. So this is probably my favorite of the adapters. What's really cool about this one is the single button use. This one is one that you can plug into the truck and then plug the charge plug into it. So I really love this one by A to Z. That's probably my favorite one of all. You can see this is the Ford one that is made by Lectron, and it's essentially the same one that I just showed you a minute ago. It's just branded by Ford. Of course, there is the original Tesla adapter, right, that Ford came out with. It's very small and compact and light, so that's the advantage of that one. And then there are some of these more questionable designs, right? Some have been more successfully tested than others, but I've got a couple of these that you can check out those videos. But again, like we talked about earlier with the NEMA 1450 plug, this is where you don't want to go cheap. You spend the money on the vehicle, don't go cheap buying the lowest cost adapter. Don't go cheap buying the lowest cost NEMA 1450. Pay the money to do the right equipment when it comes to adapters and plugs. There is one here also from Electron. This is one that I would use when I'm going to like hotels or traveling. And this one's a bit bigger, you'll see, than what we showed you earlier. And this one goes all the way to 80 amps. Now my truck can't do 80 amps, but some of the original 22 and 23s can do 80 amps. And so this is just a bit more robust. And so when I'm traveling, I tend to go with these bigger ones than the smaller ones that I use at home. So again, a lot of different adapter options, but don't be confused. Some people will try to use these big DC adapters for AC chargers and then wonder why it's not working. Although I didn't cover it in this video, I do have a great mobile charger solution, which will use the NEMA 1450 if you need it. And it is a great option for the F-150 Lightning. It's one done by Grizzly, and I'm gonna make a video about that soon. So if you like this kind of content, like, subscribe, hype this video if you're on mobile. It really helps other EV type enthusiasts see this type of content. And leave a comment down below if you have any questions about any of these adapters or about charging or about either the universal wall connector or about the IYILO or any of this kind of stuff. Or if you just enjoyed what you saw here, drop me a comment, say hi. And all of that kind of engagement really helps the channel, especially when you're small like mine. It helps other folks see it, and I really appreciate that. So hopefully you enjoyed this, and hopefully you've learned something here. Or if you haven't and you just enjoyed it, mention that as well. We will see you on the next one. Thanks for hanging out with us tonight.